good?
Great. Good.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ag Innovation Challenge. I'm Sarah Dirks, the Executive Director of Industry Relations at the American Farm Bureau Federation. And the Ag Innovation Challenge launched in 2015, and at that time it was the first rural business competition of its kind, and we launched it with the White House. It was a really exciting event, and it's been such a treat to see this grow and evolve over the 6 years that this has been going on at Farm Bureau. At first, I would like to thank our partner, Farm Credit. We have some folks here from the Farm Credit system, if you could just wave around. Yes, there's a lot of folks here from Farm Credit, which is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. We could not do this without our partner Farm Credit and without our sponsors. Something that's unique about this program is solely funded externally thanks to all of our sponsors, Farm Credit, John Deere, Bayer Crop Science, Farm Bureau Bank, Country Financial, and Farm Bureau Financial Services. So it's a really unique program to Farm Bureau, and that way we're able to support these Farm Bureau businesses. And something that was new this year is we started working across the Farm Credit system to help narrow down to the top 10 teams. So the 10 teams that came to convention this weekend to compete, they were chosen by a panel of judges from across the Farm Credit system, and the 10 teams each received $10,000, and they came and competed on Friday here in Austin. And that was also something that was new this year that was a lot of fun. So these teams, are there any of those teams in the audience watching? I see a bunch of them here. All right, can we get a round of applause for all of our top 10 teams? So these teams competed on Friday, and we had a great panel of judges, and they narrowed down to our final 4 teams that we have here today that you're about to see. So I would like to welcome up to the stage Todd Erickson. Todd is the Director of Agribusiness Lending with Farm Credit Bank of Texas, and Todd is going to be my MC today. So Todd, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for all that you do at Farm Credit.
Thank you very much. First of all, we'd like to thank Farm Bureau for allowing us the chance to partner. With this event, it's right up our wheelhouse. A century ago, both Farm Credit and Farm Bureau started out to serve rural America and agricultural America. At the time, it was mostly seasonal crops, inputs. Over time, it became land, it became facilities, operations, and now we actually have the chance to really help to push innovation. Farm Credit and Farm Bureau believe that in order to be leaders and to maintain the leadership of American agriculture, we need to invest in rural towns and in agriculture. This event fits with what the Farm Credit system has been doing in its rural business investment programs. These include investments in rural business investment companies. These are companies that make investments in growth businesses that are exactly like the companies that you're going to see here today. And with some good fortune, we may actually see some of these companies receive investments from venture and private equity firms from this event. So with that, we'd like to move on. I think we'll probably introduce the judges now.
I'm going to pass it to you, Todd, and I just want to remind you all that the winner today will be announced tomorrow morning, and they will win a total of $30,000 in startup funds. And you also get to choose the People's Choice winner. So voting is open now on the app, and it will close today at 8 p.m. So go to the Farm Bureau Events app, and under surveys, you can vote for your People's Choice winner. Both winners will be announced tomorrow at the closing general session tomorrow morning. People's Choice winner will win $25,000. So Todd, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Sure. So the judging process is ending here on stage, but it began months ago with a screening committee. I'd like to thank the Farm Credit folks and the Farm Bureau folks who helped with the initial screening, some of them here today. We had a great pool of applicants today. The screening committee took the large list that we had down to 10 that presented Friday. And from that, we had judging panels, a lot of whom are here as well, helped to select the final 4. The judges who will help us select the winner from these final 4 are here today, and I'll let them introduce themselves, beginning with Nick.
Thanks, Todd. My name's Nick Weinberg. I'm actually with Farm Credit Mid-America. I've been with the Farm Credit system for about 8 years now. I just would really like to thank Farm Bureau for the opportunity here, and I'm excited to see these 4 finalists, semifinalists.
Ed Reister, I'm a professor in ag economics at Texas A&M, class of 74 for you Aggies out there. And again, thanks to Farm Bureau and congratulations to all the contestants. I teach a class in agribusiness entrepreneurship, and I'm going to try to take back some of these stories and encourage my students along the way.
Barney Debnam, I lead ag strategy at Microsoft. Thanks for the sponsors for making this event happen, and most of all, thanks for the participants that have devoted their time and energy to making these ideas come to life. So,
yes. Can we get a round of applause for our judges here today? Thank you. So, I can't wait to see this competition begin. So, let us welcome to the stage the first team, Hive Lend, who are Maryland Farm Bureau members, and here to represent Hive Lend is Don Musil. Don?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Bees are critical to 1 in every 3 bites of your food, from your apples and your watermelons to your almonds and your chocolate. Bees are critical. In fact, bees directly impact $20 billion in the U.S. agricultural economy through pollination today. But as many people are aware, we are experiencing a severe loss of bees. And these little bees and the pollen pants that provide pollination are in peril. In fact, over the last decade, we've lost an average of 40% of our hives annually. And while 22% hive losses are sustainable, we're experiencing nearly twice that amount. And the cost of these hive losses are being passed on to the farmers that use these pollination services. For example, in 2006, almond farmers were paying less than $150 per hive for pollination services. But in 2020, these same farmers are paying $210 per hive for the exact same pollination service. And at the same time, we are also seeing a loss of native pollinators, which means the more than 100,000 mid-sized level farms that are focused in specialty crops are losing the pollinators that they need, needing to tap into supplemental pollination, but unable to afford the prices at how high they're going. And at the same time, there's actually 125,000 beekeepers in the United States today. But only 1,600 of these beekeepers are commercial beekeepers focused on pollination and services for the farmers. That's where Hive Lend comes in. Hive Lend is working to empower the other 123,000 hives. We are working with these hobbyists and sideliners, giving them access to the pollination market, because these hobbyists and sideliners actually represent 50% of the beehives that are in the United States today. We are doing this through our online aggregation platform, hivelend.com, and it's really simple to use. Hobbyists and sideline beekeepers log on to our website. They fill out the form with the number of hives they have, their location, and contact information. Farmers log on who are looking for hives, put in their location, contact information, and number of acres and crops. We then match them based on location, number of hives needed, and timing. For this service, we take a small transaction fee, in addition to additional services such as hive placement, logistics, and transportation. We are therefore enabling beekeepers and farmers to make a connection in a market that they're new to entering. One specific example that we're working with in Maryland right now are Western Maryland beekeepers that have been around for 50 years, and they've been helping to pollinate neighbors' apple and peach orchards. But they're looking to get more money and get into the pollination market. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Shore, we've had some watermelon growers who lacked the sufficient hives for pollination this year. So we negotiated contact, facilitated the contracts and logistics, and enabled them to have the hives they needed for pollination and triple the income for those beekeepers. We are working in a market where there's a lot of competitors already, but most of those competitors are focused on hardware solutions. And while we're partnering with them, we are a software solution bringing more players into the pollination marketplace to make pollination more accessible for all. We're starting in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic where we're based, but we've already seen traction in the West, in Oregon and California. And so far, we've completed $80,000 in contracts to date, with $200,000 in the pipeline for 2020. But we need your help to make the Uber for bees a success.
Awesome. Awesome.
My co-founder is going to join
Cool,
me for
yeah,
questions.
thanks,
This
yeah.
is Nick Zaytu.
Hi. So it's awesome. We had 2 years ago, we had the Fitbit for pigs, and now we have the Uber for bees. So really exciting stuff. Could you talk to me? You talked about your competition. Can you tell me a little bit more about your economic moat and what differentiates yourself, and particularly what, Uber has had challenges being profitable. So, explain to me, how you beat the competition.
Yeah, happy to address that. So when we're looking at the competition, we're looking at pollination brokers, which are kind of brick and mortar equivalents of what we're working on. But the exciting thing about Hive Lend is that these pollination brokers are largely regionally focused and only work with the larger beekeepers. Some that we've been speaking to have even referred beekeepers to us because they don't want to deal with the logistics of a contract that's smaller. So really, we are both enabling those beekeepers to find new resources, and at the same time, we're working with the existing competitors.
When you follow up on that, when you look at your economic model, on the cost side, what's the one most important cost factor that's affecting your profitability, and how are you managing that cost to enhance your profitability?
Yeah, so when we look at cost, most important to us is being able to recognize the pricing for the farmers and beekeepers, because if we can't get the price per hive right for the actual contract, then that's going to be limiting to our ability to scale up.
And it's also a market that's shifting from year to year, so we have to price in a way that's advantageous to both the farmers and the beekeepers, and that's shifting, and something we're working with to get feedback on from year to year. So we had farmers that we worked with last year and beekeepers, they renewed that contract, but the prices shift. So that's why our transaction model is contract, pricing size based, and also market based.
Thank you.
First, I want to compliment you on the story that you gave, like in terms of telling your story and what the market need is. It's great, a great way just to tell the story. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
One thing I would really love to hear is when you look back at how the business has evolved, can you look back to any maybe failure or a challenging time and how you overcame that and what you learned from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest challenge, and I would say almost failure to start with, but was our first contract. We had learned a lot from it. We also learned the kind of questions that we need to ask, but then also in marketing and outreach. So I only went full-time on this 2 months ago. We've been working on this for a couple of years part-time, but learning to understand the dynamics in the conversation. While I have a background in beekeeping, I still have so much to learn. So I think one of the biggest things is making sure we're asking our customers more for feedback and input than telling.
Great, thank you.
So this is a two-part question. Who do you see as your customer? Is it the farmer or is it the beekeeper? And what do you think is your customer acquisition cost?
So we have approximately $1,000 for customer acquisition costs today, which is high, but that also represents an average $20,000 contract. Oops, sorry. But it is a double-sided marketplace. So some of the challenges that we face with that is that we see both the farmers and the beekeepers as our customer, and that transaction cost that we facilitate is our real business. So we're starting with a regional go-to-market strategy to address that challenge of being a double-sided marketplace, starting in the Midwest, which is where we're from, and the Mid-Atlantic, where we're based, and then spreading out regionally.
Go ahead, that was my two-part, yeah.
Yeah, as Nick said, this connectivity platform you're working, we see it across different industries and so forth. What do you have in place to protect your software, what you're doing, from a competitor picking up the same idea and running with it?
Yeah, so I think Dawn addressed this a little bit during her pitch, but one of the things that we're really excited about is working with hardware manufacturers in the space, because some people might look at them as the eventual competitors, but if we work with them now and we help them, and over time we can maybe aggregate the data that their hardware is working with, we create a much stickier platform. We're able to start with pollination and then offer a lot more different opportunities so that we can enable add-on services, we can help them with honey sales. It's really, the start is pollination, but we can really be a one-stop shop for empowering beekeepers.
And there's a lot of shifts in the market, so collaboration is far more powerful right now than competition. So that's why we're working with these hardware manufacturers and potential competitors to get a competitive advantage today.
Thank you.
Can you all share your perspective on competition, or competitive threats in terms of where you see the business that you're in?
Yeah, absolutely. The two biggest threats company-wise that we're focusing on right now is Honeybee Center, but they're based in British Columbia. Their model is similar to us, but they are based in Canada, and Bee Sharing, exact same model as us, but they're based in Germany. So unless they come over here, and we've already made contacts, had discussions on what their kind of progress is, and the idea is that we kind of want to be working together eventually, but right now we see them as our direct competitors. But there's other companies too, like Complex, and there's artificial drones that are also new to the space, creating innovation. But for example, Complex is actually an installation in the base and entrance of the hive to zap varroa mites. Now they're looking for beekeepers to use their product. We have beekeepers on our platform, so that's a potential collaborative opportunity for both them and us.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Can we get another round of applause for Hive Lend? Thank you very much. Next up, we would like to introduce our second finalist, HydroSide Systems from Idaho Farm Bureau members. The team is represented by Dana Mohr.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Dana Mohr, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of HydroSide Systems. We at HydroSide have solved a problem in the traveling irrigation niche, both in the US and abroad. Some of you might be wondering, well, what do you mean by traveling irrigation? Well, there's four primary types. You get the one you're probably most familiar with, the center pivot, but you've also got the wheel line, traveling gun, and the lateral move. Today I'll be focusing my attention on the traveling gun and the wheel line. These two legacy systems in the US alone, on average, irrigate over 4 million acres per year. Now, these legacy systems are also very labor intensive. They require that the farmer and/or farm hands come down to physically move these things from one irrigation set to the next. Now, the farmers have spoken. They're frustrated with these systems. They have 5 primary issues based on our interviews of our customer pool. First, we have a loss of time, not in operating the system itself, but in time spent coordinating staff, running out to deal with troubleshoot problems, coming off a project to address another issue. This adds up to approximately 4 hours per day during the irrigating season. Next, we have an inefficiency of the water delivery, up to 35% water loss due to inefficient water application, which is proven over a 3-year study in Australia. Additionally, they're expensive to operate, over $11,000 a year, over 160 acre square annually. On top of that, peace of mind is lost. Hard to place a value on that, but the farmer doesn't know these things are working unless they're physically being watched. All that adds up to hit the farmer right where it hurts, the bottom line. Enter HydroSide Systems. At HydroSide, we put that 4 hours back on the farmer's clock because we have the first remotely driven system. Additionally, we can reduce that waste by approximately 70% or more by incorporating precision irrigation technology onto our platform. Also, that $11,000, put that back into your pocket where it belongs because it's the first automated system of its kind. On top of that, we restore the peace of mind for the farmer because now these systems will proactively communicate with the farmer right to his or her phone or a laptop. All that adds up to an increase in revenue per acre based on savings alone. That doesn't even include the increase in yield the farmer can expect from the efficient application of the water. So we're doing this with our patent-pending hydroelectric drive system. Think about it this way. Water comes into the system, spins a turbine. Turbine charges a battery bank. Battery bank, in turn, powers our onboard navigation and our electric drive system. On top of that, we have a proprietary software platform whereby you can drive it from your phone or your laptop. Additionally, we have precision irrigation technology that gets you accuracy and precision down to 2 inches with our GPS technology. Now, this will have a significant impact on this sector across rural America. Think of those 4 million acres in the US. There's a potential savings annually of $250 million for farmers in the savings alone. Now, on top of that, HydroSide will be helping create a lot of new ag tech jobs across the US to the tune of 150 or more in the next 5 years is what we anticipate. And we're going to keep the United States ahead of the curve internationally for this hydroelectric technology. We've secured that right overseas because we are patent pending, and we also have a positive review in the World International Patent Organization, which allows us to drop this into Canada, the EU, and beyond. So you might be asking, great, sounds good, how much does it cost? Well, a used traveling gun right now will cost you between $20,000 and $30,000 for a quality unit that's 5 to 10 years old. HydroSide plans on hitting the market in July of this year for a unit costing $30,000. The ROI on that, 3 to 5 years, again, on the savings alone. So we hope it's an easy decision for the farmer, and we really want to help the farmer have the water work for them and not the other way around. Thank you for your time.
When you look at your economic model, on the revenue side, you got production and sales.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat the question?
On your economic model, looking at your revenue, they're coming from production and from sales. Which of those two is the most important, and how are you trying to push that through to realize the revenue stream you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in our first 2 years, our most important component is to control our costs at all costs. We're doing that by releasing this with pre-order sales and then batch manufacturing and batch delivery. That way we can gain some initial economies of scale versus trying to carry inventory early on. However, we will need to make the leap for ultimate scalability into a traditional distribution model and have it be held by distributors, and then we can begin to push out the service and install onto the distributors, similar to a John Deere tractor being sold at a dealer. In that way. So again, controlling costs and those margins is significant in the early stage. Does that answer your question?
Very good, thanks.
I want to compliment you on the customer mosaics that you put together. I thought that was great, a great way to look at the market and really understand the customer demand. So great job on that. The question I have is, how has kind of the aftermarket service aspect of this business impacted your all strategy, since timing is everything in ag? Right, so what's your perspective on the service side of your business?
Yeah, on the service side, it's a great question, because early on, for these first 2 batches, we will be doing and performing the installation and the maintenance on them, because we're not going to have hundreds of units out there out of the gate. So we're able to both learn, educate each other, and then develop our manual so that we can have a very clear service manual as we push this out on larger scale. So in that process, we also have some redundancy in revenues. So this, with the precision irrigation, we're relying on an RTK network that we're going to control. So we have our own software system and our own base stations in order to provide the GPS correction data, and that will be a supplemental revenue stream for us, whereby we can charge the farmer a much lower rate than, say, Trimble or TerraStar, which might be $1,000 per serial number. We can have them operate all of their HydroSide equipment for $20 a month with their own network. So we'll be able to control that because everything is cell-enabled, and we can remote in software and do updates and remote in to handle that side. However, we will begin to build out a series of consultants and technicians that are trained, like a Honda technician or a John Deere technician. They'll get certified by us, and then they can do the service for us.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Dana, and I want to echo what Barney was saying. I think you guys did a great job putting together the pitch beforehand, and you're solving a problem that I think everybody can identify. My question is on the patent. Can you get a little bit more detail as to what is being protected here in the process, and is it you can just give us a little bit more detail on what's being patented?
Absolutely. So we worked with a very solid patent attorney, actually out of Silicon Valley, and what we've done is we've secured the patent for our drive system. So we now will own the market in terms of hydroelectric drive systems. We've crafted it in such a way so that it is wide enough that we can have an inline turbine, we can have a Venturi turbine, we can have a variety of means to cover this, which allows us in our 3-year plan to be able to build this into those linear moves. I mentioned those earlier. That's the fastest growing form of irrigation on the large scale side. We don't have the capital yet to build that big of a system, but we've strategically positioned ourselves to be able to attack that market as well. So we've crafted it around the drive system. We don't care if people copy our chassis because they can't power it the way that we can.
Sure. Thank you.
Speak a little bit about how you're interfacing your technology with precision agriculture. You talk about saving water, so you're going to be using data from another source. How is that interface working?
Yeah, it's a good question on how do we integrate. We're crafting our platform to be as really as open source as we can make it, so it's communicated across multiple streams. Now, where we gain the benefit is we're not relying on the correction data on RTK networks that are outside of HydroSide right now. We're creating our own. So we get to control at least the data within our platform. Now, how does that data communicate out to the farmer? We've got our proprietary software platform that goes to the farmer's phone and or laptop. But then communicating across platforms, that's the next step in getting it to talk to those. But we're creating it in such a way that it's open. It's all in C++ wrapped, so I mean it'll communicate pretty seamlessly, and it should be able to communicate pretty well.
So that's where you're going to pick up the need for different amounts of water applied in different parts of the field and different soil types and so forth.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's where you're going to account for the variable water application using farmer from the data. You're going to grab his
so
data.
where we can get accuracies down to 2 inches of precision. Think about the farmer, like most people here, that have a rolling hill. Now at the top of the hill, you got to put down more water, and at the bottom of the hill, you got to put down less, because you're going to have runoff issues. But these systems are based on convenience, not on what the plants and not what on the ground needs. So typically 12 or 24-hour sets versus the farmers that we interview say, I like to run mine every 6 or 8 hours, but I'm not getting up at 2 in the morning. Well, it knows where it is at all times, lat and longitude as well as altitude. So the system itself, the farmer can set the irrigating times based on where it is in space, not just based on timing alone. So that's where the GPS precision is critical on the precision side. Does that answer your question?
I'm going to ask my question around failure or challenge that you've had in your business and how you overcame it, what you learned from it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. So the idea came in 2017, and late 2017, we assembled our investor and our lead developer, Peter Bean, who's in the audience with us here today. And in 2019, we built our version 1. And our version 1 was on our beta test farm in Post Falls, Idaho. And we did hit some challenges. We had to reassess our turbine. We had to reassess how we were doing our gearing. But then we were able to solve those problems, and in the midst of doing that, we actually solved a couple more. And so we've got our version 2 design that's complete, and literally today it's being built. So based on those innovations and then the adaptations we've made, Fresno State picked up on it in their Center of Irrigation Technology, and they want it on their test farm. So we'll be out there testing V2 in April. So we've learned a lot, and it's been fabulous. And so we're pleased that it's not just a concept and a cool graphic. It's in the field today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're a little bit unique in this cohort in that you're pre-revenue at this time. So is that correct? So,
Yes.
So explain to me a little bit about your go-to-market to move forward and sort of how that sales process will go.
Yeah, absolutely. So to piggyback on a little bit of the answer on how we're going to deliver this in terms of pre-order sales, it really is a matter of generating the pre-revenue sale or the pre-sales order. So we will be in beta in California on Fresno State. We have our beta test farm in Idaho, and we also have commitments from farmers in Montana that want it on their fields in the spring. So we do have parties that are in line. However, of the 4 million acres I described with this niche that we're focusing on first, which is the wheel lines and traveling guns, 1.75 million is right in HydroSide's backyard in the inland Northwest. So we've got a significant amount of that market space right behind us in the US. So we can actually take this and demo it at the local areas where these densities of users are and be able to actually get this product out there. So my wife and I joke, because we will be a bit of a traveling band of gypsies over the first stages of this platform, but we know people will probably need to see it to believe it. So that's what we plan on doing, and having 3 in beta, so we have feedback from all the farmers to provide how well it's working for them, and then we will also have something for all of them to see as they go along to generate some of those pre-order sales. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thanks.
Great.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we get a round of
Great.
applause?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Round of applause for HydroSide Systems. Thank you very much, Dana. So that completes the second finalist. Now we have the third team coming up, Innovative Agricultural Technologies out of North Carolina. They are also Farm Bureau members. And here to represent Innovative Ag Tech is Matthew Parker. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matthew Parker, and I represent Innovative Agricultural Technologies. But more importantly, I'm here to speak on behalf of an industry in crisis. The longleaf pine tree is the state tree of both North Carolina and Alabama. And the longleaf pine is prized for 2 natural resources, timber and the high-quality landscaping mulch made from the longleaf pine needles that fall from the trees naturally. That pine straw, the landscaping mulch, is used across the country in front of homes, businesses, and golf courses, including Pinehurst No. 2 and Augusta National. The pine straw industry is a $250 million industry right now, but it's being strangled by a market failure. Nearly all pine straw in the United States is raked by hand, it's cleaned by hand, and it is baled by hand. compounded by the fact that the pine straw industry is not eligible for H-2A labor, makes this an unsustainable business model moving into the future. This is bad news for the pine needle producers who rely heavily on pine straw to pay their bills and feed their families. It's bad news for the landowners who lease their land to the pine needle producers. And finally, it's bad news for the wildlife that depend on the longleaf pine ecosystem and its continued existence. But together, we can change that. Innovative Agricultural Technologies was founded 2 years ago by 5 engineering graduates from NC State University with an eye towards solving problems in tough ag industries. And we decided to look close to home. We talked to the pine needle producers. They reached out to us and we listened to what they had to say. We designed and built a prototype of the first machine to ever remove sticks and pine cones from pine straw to make the highest quality, highest value landscaping mulch available. Ladies and gentlemen, our machine, we call it the Pine Bind, cleans pine straw at a rate of 100 bales per hour, and that's just the prototype. We refined that and now have a 3D model of a machine that cleans pine straw. We anticipate at 200 bales per hour because we've increased conveyor speeds. This machine is capable of integrating with other types of technology in the pine plantation, including windrowers and balers, to make the first ever integrated process for harvesting pine straw. It's never been done before, and it will revolutionize the industry. The pine straw machine that we have, the Pine Bind, will be coming out at a retail price of about $40,000. And with another $60,000 investment in balers and windrowers, a pine producer can totally mechanize their whole process. When they do this, they're going to be able to harvest sites conduct harvest sites at 3, 5, or even more locations, as they say they want to. This is what the information we've gotten from our surveys of those producers in North Carolina. Our business model for this program is to market our machine to pine needle producers throughout the southeastern United States, to take those sales and direct them to our manufacturer subcontractors. We've already signed one contract with Strickland Brothers Enterprises in North Carolina to a rural equipment manufacturer to make these machines in anticipation of producing 3 this year. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you now to support Innovative Agricultural Technologies, but not just that. We have a lot of work to do, folks, but we are on the verge of this. We have to move forward now 3 main points. We have to prosecute our non-provisional patent. We now have a provisional patent that holds our filing date. We have to prosecute the non-provisional version. We have to continue our marketing throughout the southeastern United States, and we have to get those 3 machines to market this year for those producers in North Carolina who are most on the cutting edge of experimental technology. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to support not only Innovative Agricultural Technologies today, but also the pine needle producers, the longleaf pine ecosystem, and the landowners who lease their land and rely on this as a source of income. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can find it in your heart to do that today. Thank you so much for your consideration, and judges, I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Great. Matthew, first of all, I want to compliment you and your team for going and doing, right? A lot of people talk about it. They have senior projects. They went and they did something. So I just want to commend you and the whole team for making it happen. So
thank you.
Start there. My interest is ag safety is a big thing, right? So how has safety influenced what you all have done and consideration of your design?
Well, that's an incredibly important topic. We graduated from the North Carolina Department of Biological and Agricultural Engineering, all 5 of us at NC State. And we're ASABE members, the American Society of Ag and Biological Engineers. That means we have to follow their safety standards. They have standards that they set out. That includes warning labels. That includes how your shafts are designed. You're not supposed to have them stick out beyond a certain level because then that presents a danger for loose clothing. And all those standards we adhere to. We've got an operator's manual for our machine. And all those things are things that work into this safety feature. We're doing all we can on our side. We also, as part of our marketing, are going around, we're planning to go around the country. We've already done this in North Carolina. We want to go to trade shows and do demos throughout the Southeast. When we do that, we'll be able to show exactly the safety features that we have on there. We have electronic shutoffs, we have breakers, and all these things are designed to prevent fires in a pine forest, which is a high, a fire risk environment. So we've taken that into account as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about your relationship with the customer after a sale is made. What sort of relationship will you have with them?
Well, our business model is based really on one word, trust. We've worked with the producers from the very beginning. We've done so iteratively. We talked to them about what they needed. Do they need balers? Do they need windrowers? That's how we settled on the pine straw cleaner to begin with, because that was the missing link in the chain. After the sale, post-sale, we want to continue that kind of trusting relationship. Under the contract we have with Strickland Brothers now, they'll be warranting the machines for 1 year, and they'll be able to perform the service and keep those machines up to running, to good, running condition, and we'll be able to rely on them to do that. But we do want to, we've worked so far to position ourselves as experts in the industry, and we want to be people that the pine needle producers can come to and talk about their issues with and continue to help them in the future. So we want to just continue this relationship of trust with them, and certainly after the sale, we're not going to leave them high and dry on this type of thing. We want to, we want to continue to work with them.
Thanks.
Congratulations on a great niche. If my wife was here, she'd applaud you because she detests the pine needles in our yard. Listening to your presentation reminds me of listening to my dad talk about in the 30s and the 40s when they had the thrashers, and everything came to the thrasher.
Right.
You talked about integrating with the balers and the windrowers. Do you see the possibility of your thrasher being mobile, adding a combine, a header unit to it, and working in the pine forest?
Thank you for that question, because that's been one of our big dichotomies from the very beginning. Do we want to go mobile, or do we want to keep a unit that's stationary? We decided to go with, right now, the design we have is for a stationary unit. And we do have plans to, once we work to fill this market need, we'll be able to then take the same principle, which will be covered by that patent, the aeromechanical concept of separation will be covered. We can scale that down into a mobile unit. There's a few problems with a mobile unit. One is, when you pull it through the woods, you now have a massive unit. You have to include, if you integrate with that with a baler, then you have to have a gigantic unit, and it's hard to get through those pine plantations physically. The other problem is you then drop bales in the woods. You have to get those bales out of the woods some way. Most producers load them on 53-footer tractor trailers, and you obviously can't drive that through the woods. You have to load it and then haul it out. The reason we decided to go with a stationary machine that's more similar to I would like to analogize it more to a cotton gin, in the fact that you can gather it in large round bales here, and then move it to a secondary location, and then break those bales down into square bales, and that's more like in my mind, a cotton gin operates. So that's something that we do want to operate with, and at our $40,000 price point, that will work well for our producers who want to have that high capacity and efficiency of just get it out, move it to the location, run it, and then you can really help your bottom line with respect to labor in that respect. For some of our smaller producers, that's where we're going to look at taking the same machine, scaling it down into a mobile unit. We have that in the pipeline, but that's not something that we want to pursue right now. We have to get this followed through, because we do have a market for this right now.
Great answer.
When you look at your market, it's going into landscaping, beautification. Mm-hmm. Have you all talked about or brainstormed around, are there ways to make the market you're working for larger?
Well,
can you speak about that?
That's great. We've got a contact with Augusta National. We've worked with them, and we plan to go down and do a demonstration with them within a few months. And that's certainly going to be our end users. Those are the people who care about the cleanliness of the product. And we want to certainly broaden our market, but the pine straw industry in general, as a $250 million industry, is really a subset of the mulch industry. Most people who want ground cover or mulch want something that's aesthetically pleasing to them, that's culturally acceptable in their neighborhood. But fundamentally, pine straw and say pine bark or other mulch alternatives are largely interchangeable, and in fact, pine straw is better in a lot of respects. So for example, a bag of mulch costs $4, a bale of pine straw costs $4. The pine straw will cover 3 times ground cover that the mulch will. So part of that is, it's going to be an education, because certainly it's going to be the mulch industry overall, which is a hard industry to quantify in terms of dollars and cents, because it comes from rocks in Arizona, it comes from mulch and different, so there's a lot of different subsets of that industry. There's no reason we can't, help the producers branch out into those industries and increase the pine straw industry. In North Carolina, we only harvest 14% of our available pine straw. We don't have the labor to do it. That industry could grow if that, with the mechanization and with some kind of address done to solve this labor problem.
Very good. Thank you.
How did you arrive at your product cost? I mean, how are you getting there? Is there a substitute? Is there sort of a substitution effect, or how are you getting to that price point, and then how are you sort of analyzing your margin?
Thank you. Well, one thing we want to look at there is, what we are going to need to make, what we want to make as far as profit. So obviously the first thing we want to look at is what is it going to cost us to subcontract the manufacturing of this machine. So we looked at that and we got a number. And then we said, okay, as far as marketing this machine, because that really is going to be our main cost. It's going to come in some research and development expenses, and it's going to come in marketing. And the research and development, we've been able to partner with producers who want this so badly that they're able to allow us to test on their farms and do that sort of thing. So that helps us on that end. But we come up with our costs based on that. We also, we recognize that our machine, because of the revolutionary effect of it on the industry, once people start totally mechanizing, our machine has a fantastic return on investment by the time really about 28 days, because you're able to cut, say $10 an hour per person times 10 hours a day. When you do the math on that, it's a fantastic return on investment for the producers. Now, we don't want to underprice our product, and that's an important thing, especially with a product that is this revolutionary. But there is a price point there in the producers' minds. And as we know, it's hard to get over a certain number. And when balers are about $25,000, that have been, custom redone for pine straw, even if those balers are not 100% perfect, when they're in the $25,000 price point, it's too difficult for us to walk up and say, we want $100,000 for this machine, when that blows out of proportion our other comparable machines that also fit into that supply chain. So we want to be comparable with that, but also give us a profit that's going to allow us to go, full time into this business within, 3 to 5 years.
Thank you.
I want to pick up on both Barney congratulating you on solving a problem in the lab in your class. That's great. And then you're talking about the economic model. Tell us a little bit about participating in this contest, putting together an excellent presentation, putting together a business plan. What did you learn about your business that you didn't know beforehand? And most importantly, what do you still not know?
Well, that's great. So participating in this contest has been great. We have learned a lot. It's required us to introspectively look at what we're doing, and it's required us to do something else. What we really want to do here is help the producers. We want to help the landowners. That's where this began. We want to make a living doing that. We want to build a business doing that, and that can be done. So, but in doing this contest, we really had to sit down and say, what is going to be our financial projections? What will be our, we knew what our business model was going to be, but we had to sit down and iron out our financial projections. We had to iron out how many machines do we think we're actually going to be able to move throughout the Southeast. And that number, we have an idea for that number, and that number comes from, we're anticipating on the big machine between 250 and 500 total machines moved, and then that'll put us somewhere in the realm of about $3 to $5 million gross revenue just off the net revenue. I'm sorry, $3 to $5 million net just off that big machine prior to scaling it down. And then when we scale it down, that's one thing that we still do not know, because we can anticipate the big market, because North Carolina has a really fantastic Pine Needle Producers Association. There's 23 members. Georgia has a bigger association. They have 36 members, and those are the producers who are going to be interested in one or multiple of the pine, of our large pine straw machines. Now, what we don't know are how many people are out there who are producing 0 to 50 acres of pine straw. Many of our producers we've surveyed are in the realm of 1,000 to 3,500 acres. So that's why this big machine is a great way to scale that up. But for the small producers doing 50 acres to 100 acres, we don't know how many people are out there because they're not always reporting that, and that's somewhat of an underground market in the sense that they simply bale it, they sell it, no one knows about it. So we need to find that out, and once we go into the smaller machine, segment of our business.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you very
I'd
much.
like to ask you to have your team stand up that's in the audience just so we can thank you all. for
Yes,
coming.
thank you. If my team would stand up, thank you. Will, Ben, Alex, and Ben Coughlin couldn't be here today. It was his grandmother's 90th birthday. So,
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank again Innovative Ag Tech for presenting. This now brings us to our fourth and final contestant for the Final Four. And we're going to have Rantizo, an Iowa Farm Bureau member, and Michael Ott will be representing him. So, all right.
Many people say that drone spraying is the future of agriculture. They're wrong. Drone spraying is the present of agriculture. Rantizo has paying customers in multiple states where we're applying legally, on label, with insurance. I'm Michael Ott, I'm the CEO of Rantizo. This unit can spray 14 acres an hour, 100 acres a day, fully autonomously through the field. It's got terrain following and collision avoidance, so you can map out exactly where you want to go and deploy from there. In the next couple months, we're adding in an automated mix and fill system, which will improve our productivity up to 23 acres an hour by reducing downtime. By the end of the summer, we'll be at 60 acres an hour when we're swarming. For frame of reference, most tractors cover about 60 acres an hour. So by the end of the summer, we'll be as productive acre-wise as a tractor is. I'd like to give you a few examples of farmers that we've worked with. There's a hemp grower in Memphis, Tennessee. They had a caterpillar problem. It was too muddy for a tractor. It was too close to an airport for a plane. And it was an insecticide that makes your lips go numb. So none of the employees would backpack spray it. So we flew over their hemp, fixed that caterpillar problem for them. Near Crawfordsville, Iowa, a farmer knew something wasn't right in one of the corners of the field. He just had a feeling. He couldn't see what it was, but he just knew something wasn't right. And you know that feeling. We got an imagery company to come in. They found yellow streaking on the leaves. There was a micronutrient deficiency. We took some samples and discovered it was a cotton deficiency, or sorry, a copper deficiency. It was in soybeans. Cotton deficiency wouldn't work. Copper deficiency in soybeans. So we applied copper exactly where we needed to go, and we saw a 2.6% yield increase just in those areas. So we treated a small portion of the field with exactly what needed to be there. Near Mason City, Iowa, it was too muddy to plant. They had to get something out there, so they planted around the muddy patches. And there was concern about getting the equipment caught up in the mud. So we mapped out those areas, flew cover crop seeds exactly where they needed to be. We absorbed moisture, we reduced weed pressure, and locked in those nutrients. So we're able to do liquid and dry applications. I'm excited to announce a new dry application today. We are able to apply pollen from the drone in corn. We believe we're the first and only people to ever do that successfully. We map out exactly where we want to go using RTK precision. We're able to crossbreed different versions of pollen into corn exactly and precisely. So our business model is to sell to custom applicators. These are ag retailers, these are co-ops. That's our customer. Their customer is a farmer. So we've taken the needs of both of those into consideration as we're putting this together. The units cost $20,000 to $25,000, and Rantizo will handle all the insurance, billing, and permitting. And with that, we capture a third of the revenue that the contractor generates. So we have both an equipment sale and a recurring revenue stream. So we've seen a lot of enthusiasm for this. Our team is growing. We're upwards of 8 people now. In July, we were just in the state of Iowa. We're now in 14 states. We'll be in Indiana soon, that's state number 14. So in both the Midwest and the West Coast, and with some expansions to the east as well. Our demos have been very popular. We did one in the cold in November. We had 22 people travel 6,000 miles to come to Iowa for a demonstration, flying from as far away as California, Georgia, and North Carolina. We'd love to do more demos here, and I'd like to announce that if you vote for us in the People's Choice Award and tweet about it, tagging @Rantizo Sprays on our Twitter account, we'll choose one of those and come do a demo on your fields. So if you link to us on Twitter, @Rantizo Sprays, we would love to come to one of your fields. My name is Michael Lott. I'm the CEO of Rantizo, where we deliver solutions.
Thanks, Michael. You guys are really impressive, and I think really far along in terms of sales. So I just want to congratulate you on that and all the progress that you've made. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what IP is in here?
Sure.
I know it's cartridge based, but I guess maybe just go a little bit overview as to what is the IP here and what's sort of off the shelf.
So we have a license to an issued patent. We have filed for a patent. We have 2 others that are in process on the distribution systems, the loading systems, the software, and then this boom to make that work. Because that boom will spray with a 20-foot swath going through the field.
Cool. Great.
Speak a little bit.
Yeah, you're there.
I'll repeat the question.
Speak a little bit about just the mechanics of operations. I'm looking at what looks to me like a small capacity reservoir for your spraying agent. And when you talk about getting 14 acres an hour, how often are you having to reload the spray and so forth?
Great question. So we quote everything at a 3 gallon per acre rate. This is an almost 3 gallon tank, so that'd be about 14 trips going back and forth. And it goes very fast. We're spraying at about 15 miles an hour, so it goes really quickly. So what will happen is you'll load the drone, it'll spray going out and back, and then when it runs out, it marks that spot, zips home about 25 miles an hour, reload it, goes right back to that spot, and then continues. So you have very even and continuous coverage. So the reloading time is one of the things that's slowing us down. We're currently doing it manually, and it takes 2 minutes. With our automated system, which is a patent pending system, we will reduce that down to 30 seconds, and that's where we get that improvement to 23 acres an hour. Then swarming really brings that all the way up, where you've got 3 units flying at once.
Thank you.
I'd like to compliment you on your disclosure or just communication of product roadmap. I thought you did a great job in saying, here's where we're going, here's what's good today, here's what we're working on. That was great. So
thank you.
Compliment you on that. My question is, in the crop protection business, it's a science, but it's also regulatory sciences, and the right to apply is almost as important as I have the science to apply. So can you speak to how you're dealing with the right to apply on aerial aerial activities?
So we can apply anything that can be applied aerially from a drone. So all liquids and solids, as long as you can apply it aerially, that works. There's 3 things that you need. 2 of them are very easy to get. First is a Part 107 license and a state applicator license. Those are pretty much forms, maybe do an easy test, that's not too hard. The hard thing is to get a Part 137 from the FAA, and Rantizo has that, and we work with that with our contractors. They're flying under our banner there. But you're right that the regulatory issue is a hard one. My favorite story on this is these are classified as crop dusters. So in the very beginning, we had to follow all crop duster rules, including wearing a seatbelt and having the operator's manual on board. So you'd get a little toy seatbelt, or you would just get a belt that like literally was a seatbelt, and then they're like, okay, I'm adhering to your regulatory, which is, when you've got new technology, sometimes the regulations don't keep up. So we've kept a pretty open dialogue with the FAA and others just to say, here's what we're doing. We're always in the spirit of the law. Sometimes we're not following just because the laws are not really written with this in mind.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Long term, do you see yourself as a hardware company or a software company or a mixture of both?
I'd say we're an application services company. We've got a hardware component and a software component with that. And if you look at our revenue split, currently there's much more in equipment sales, but over time, as we get more of their contractors in and we're able to spray more, that'll flip pretty dramatically, and it'll be mostly application services is where the majority of our revenue will come in. We're currently at $300,000 in revenue that we've generated just in the second half of 2019. We got our first license in July, and we're planning for a big expansion into 2020 and beyond.
Great.
As you say, drone services are here today. Do you see them replacing conventional ground and aerial, or just being used in select targeted cases?
I think you'll see that evolution. Right now, we are a far superior option in terms of spot spraying. There's many instances where I can get into locations that no one else can. So that is complementary. As we have the swarming, as we have greater productivity, as our costs continue to come down, I eventually think that we'll replace a big chunk of that.
Thank you.
One of the scoring rubrics that we have is rural impact, so the
Sure.
impact on small towns, on mid-America. Can you speak to how your company is giving back to the people that they're servicing?
Absolutely. We had a quote in our 10-minute presentation. It was a local co-op owner who said, "These are the jobs that people want, and it's very hard to hire. If you want to do a traditional, get somebody in a rogator, that's not an easy job to fill. These are the type of jobs that new people coming into agriculture are really excited about."
Okay.
So this is a thing that we're focused on: labor and job creation, and we've been very successful in a short amount of time. We hope to ramp that up pretty significantly.
Great, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rantizo. That finishes up the presentations from our 4 finalists. I would like to again thank Farm Bureau for inviting us to have this wonderful event. We'd like to thank the judges and everybody that made this happen. Can we have a round of applause for them?
Thank you so much, Todd.
And with respect to all of the 10 semifinalists and finalists that came in, we'd like to congratulate them for having the courage of their convictions to make these businesses happen. We're rooting for all of you. And as you find out, friends and family and neighbors that have these ideas, encourage them to follow them, and we'd love to see them up on stage in future years.
Thank you, Todd. And we'd like to welcome all of our top 4 teams to come on up with each member of your team. Thank you so much again to Farm Credit, both to everyone across the system that worked on this, and especially the Farm Credit Council staff. We have Brittany, Robbie, Sophie. We couldn't have done it without you guys. Thank you to our judges from Microsoft, Texas A&M, Farm Credit Mid-Atlantic, to my staff, Emma Larson, who was key in putting this together, and especially thank you to our sponsors, Bayer Crop Science, John Deere, Farm Credit, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Farm Bureau Bank, and Country Financial. We couldn't do this without you guys. Don't forget to vote for your favorite on the app through 8 p.m. today. And the People's Choice Award winner and the Entrepreneur of the Year will be announced at tomorrow morning's closing general session. So can I get one more round of applause for all of our teams here today? Thank you so much.